All right, let's get right into this. So basically, here's the deal. And by they, I mean the general community when it comes to online, YouTube, Facebook, X-oriented individuals on all these social platforms, we've been getting a lot of responses, and it's about essentially how much does it cost the Social Security Administration to go ahead and listen in on slash wiretap those who are recipients receiving benefits. Could be retirement benefits, Social Security disability insurance benefits, supplemental security income benefits, widow's benefits, ex-spousal benefits. Could be any one of those. Could be disabled little child benefit. Could be any one of those. Could be entrants, right? Your immigrants receiving SSI. Princess Diana with the 20 months membership. That's absolutely amazing. Look at that new icon right there. Woot woot. Very nice. Very nice. That's awesome. All right, so here's what you need to know. As you know from the prior video we went over, there are some rules. 20 CFR section 422.701 gives you the scope and purpose of essentially how they're allowed to listen in on your phone calls. And yes, they can access text messages as well. I saw a lot of people saying that they couldn't. They absolutely can. Then you have 20 CFR 422.705. When SSA employees may listen into or record telephone conversations. We already went over that in the prior video. And then you have 20 CFR 422.710, procedures SSA will follow basically when they begin the process to try and listen in on your phone call. So pretty straightforward, pretty simple stuff. Those are the statutes you want to read about if you are curious. Now, real quick, a big shout out to Leanne. Leanne basically has been with us for the longest. She did a donation. For some reason, my computer isn't able to go up to that point. So if you could let me know how much she donated, that is absolutely amazing. Oh, there it is. No, there it is. $10. That's a massive, it's a big donation. That's amazing. I love the little happy person there with the LOL. That's awesome with $10 donation. Thank you, Leanne. Leanne has been with me basically on this channel since the days when I would make videos in my Prius. And yes, my Prius is literally falling apart, but she won't die. She just won't die. I'm going to send you guys a picture at some point so you can see how the Prius is doing. She is rusting. She's lost so much clear coat. When I show up, people think I'm like, this person that they don't want to look at. But that's okay. That's okay. You know what I mean? I grew up on a farm, and you kind of use the vehicles you have until the engine or transmission goes. And if you have a spare engine, you put it in. You know what I mean? All right, now let's get to it. Here we go. So there is no official line item, boopity boopity boop budget on what the SSA spends on the IT phone systems to go ahead and listen in slash, basically tap your phone calls. Now, I don't make this video to scare people. I make it to educate you on how the systems work. So the prior video from yesterday, or the day before, I forget, was about how they are allowed to do it. We went through the rules and the regulations of when they can listen in, of when they can go ahead and tap your phone. Now, that does include text. Now we're going to go through essentially how much it costs. So the bottom line is the actual budgets that they prepare and release to the general public related to Social Security Administration do not include, once again, do not include the listening or tapping of the phones as an actual line item. So the first thing that happens if you check with one of these artificial intelligence machines is it will tell you that the SSA doesn't listen, or it doesn't have the budget to listen, or it must use other agencies to listen or tap your phone. That would be incorrect. Now, does the SSA assimilate with other agencies, especially for criminal law review purposes? Where they're trying to find a criminal, could potentially be a civil situation as well, like a tortious conduct. In that instance, just so that you're fully aware, just so that you're fully on board, yes, they do assimilate with other groups, okay? Mostly for the wiretapping aspect of it. However, SSA has the technology, the hardware, the trained personnel to go ahead and do the listening. That's a big part of the thing. They're trying to figure out if their customers are interacting properly with the personnel, the employees, and if the employees are being timely and courteous in their interactions. Princess Diana did a $10 donation. Thank you, Princess Diana. Princess Diana has been with us a very, very long time as well. Number one fan pair. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I see Christy Hughes did a $2 donation. That's amazing as well. Howdy, howdy. How are you doing, madam? Very good to see you. Excellent, excellent. So the big thing here that we need to talk about is what is the actual cost related to going ahead and, actually listening in or wiretapping a phone system. And I think that when I tell you this stuff, it will kind of relax you. It'll make you feel a little bit better, or it will be a shocking experience and you'll be like, the government spends how much to figure out something like this? And yeah, it can be a little spicy. It can be a little spicy. Real quick, Starvery, how we doing, good sir, with the $10 donation? Let me put a little heart on there. That's awesome. Let's see. If I had the power to get rid of the SSA and just pay every employee a monthly stipend, I would have done it yesterday. I'm truly sorry all Americans have to deal with the SSA. Yeah, the SSA is not doing so well right now. They're under budget. They're understaffed. They're under benefited. They're under, trust funded. I mean, every aspect of it's pretty much undied. It's undied right now. It's not doing so super dupe. But to be honest with you, it needs a facelift. I don't think they're approaching it necessarily the right way, because normally you would go ahead and test out new systems and then modify and train the staff based off of the needs of those new systems. Whereas Trump and Elon, kind of went at it a different way. The way they went at it was massively hack off portions of it, see if it could still survive, and then basically start throwing programs out there to see what it could do. Again, the Republicans, their way of doing things, launch the rocket over and over and over again, see what works, see what doesn't work. The Democrat way of doing things, make sure it's perfect so nobody gets hurt, and then 30 years too late, release it. Those are like your two stylistic approaches. One is pushing stuff out the door way too fast, shipping way before it needs to be shipped. The other method is it never ships on time, and then generations later it finally catches up. So you got to pick what you want. You know what I mean? Now let's go through this real quick. All right. So, and again, remember, the SSA is not just the SSA. The SSA is really a multi administration organized group at this point. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is basically they are interlinked with all these different sheriff's offices, police departments, agents, etc. And so what it really means is that at the end of the day, the SSA, because of the Office of Inspector General, and the VA has this too. In fact, almost all of these administrations have their version of an Inspector General. But because of that, there is a strong connection between the Department of Justice and the Office of Inspector General and local law enforcement. And when I say local, I mean local, state, and also feds. So that's my new word, by the way, the feds. How the feds doing? Got that little blazer on with the little F on it, the feds. Anyways, the point is, it's late. It is 11:52 p.m. And yes, I do work this late, which is why whenever you see me during the nighttime, I'm a little out of it. When you see me during the day, I am on top of it 99% of the time, I hope. So let's get to it. Wiretaps and CALEA, or CALEA compliant surveillance. I've heard that pronounced a little bit differently. All right, so what is a CALEA surveillance that's compliant? So there's this Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act, okay? CALEA, they pronounce it different ways, but the bottom line is this, okay? A traditional wiretap usually costs around $250. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, that's pretty cheap and kind of scary because of that. That's not good. My hair is atrocious. I'm sorry. It's either falling out or not falling in. I can't. Oh my goodness. Yes. No. Yes. Okay. All right. Now, however, in order to make that compliant as a wiretap with that act, CALEA, it usually costs around $2,200, which is where you have a carrier facilitated interruption and interception. And basically, it's like 10 times as much as just a regular wiretap. So in order for the US government to do it legally based on the rules and regulations that they created to restrict how they do it, instead of it just being $250, it's around $2,200. Now, an average wiretap, Okay, just so that we have an understanding of this, where you got to get the equipment, you got to get the office stuff, desks and whatever. You got to get the processing, you got to get the people trained, the overhead. It's estimated that would cost around $50,000. Now, remember, that's not for just one in the sense of long term. That's like an immediate, if we just said we need Wiretap on this in that new building with this new staff, with this new whatever, that's where you put the 50 grand. Okay. But obviously it's not that expensive, rinse and repeat. Once they've got the office set up, once they've got the Wiretap certifications rolling through the act, then at that point, they can go ahead and for about $2,200 do a Wiretap where they actually have the towers capable of being intercepted, where they can log right in and get in there. Now, with that said, a lot of this data is old because we don't actually know definitively how much it costs nowadays. And it also has shifted a lot. Some gear got more expensive, some gear got cheaper because, we went from like this analog system to this hybrid analog system to this digital system. And then we went from like a digital system into like a fiber internet system. So like the point I'm getting at is some things got cheaper and some things got more expensive. 1993 wiretaps averaged around $57,256 each, totaling about 51.7 million across the US. But that was just 1993. Okay. Now, what you need to know is I'm going to give you the specifics that were, figures. And these were leaked, figures, leaked document from a police department, later reported by Forbes and different groups. So we're not going to get in trouble here by reporting this. T-Mobile. Okay. So surveillance request. So when the police department or whatever sends out a request, this is kind of your initial charge, initial cost request. So T-Mobile costs about $500 per target per month. Sprint costs about $400 per market area and per technology, plus $10 a day, capped at $2,000. This is around 2009 to 2012. We don't have newer stuff than that because remember, the government hides stuff from us. We usually only find out about it if a document is leaked or a Snowden ends up, I don't know, working for a couple hours one day. Something like that has to happen for us to actually learn the truth of what our government does. Okay, that's the reality. Okay, because it is considered sensitive information. It cries in the corner. It is sensitive. Next, AT&T, $325 activation fee, $5 a day for data, $10 a day for audio. Verizon, $50 administrative fee, $700 a month per target. Let's see what else. We got voicemail, text access, AT&T. So remember, this is not just, you know what I mean? So voicemail, like, getting your messages, and getting your texts, not just like the phone line, but those two, voicemail and text. AT&T, it's $150 for voicemail. Verizon, it's $50 for text messages. Sprint, it's $120 for pictures and videos. So all those fun, risque, spicy pictures you sent each other, about $120 a piece. They can get all those. $60 for email or voicemail, $30 for text. All right. So, now if you wanted a tower dump, that's basically where the tower, which is, you've seen them. They're these big towers, or they're part of a building, and then there's a tower going up above the building. And they have these like little white, weird shaped things that are on them and that are like shooting internet across. So tower dumps, cell site logs. AT&T is about $75 per tower per hour with a minimum of 2 hours. That's where you can just get whatever went through that cell tower. Verizon is $30 to $60 per hour per tower. T-Mobile is $150 per hour. Sprint is $50 per tower, no hourly rate. And if you wanted real-time location tools, Sprint's L-Site was $30 per month per target. AT&T's E911 was $100 to activate, $25 a day thereafter. T-Mobile was $100 per day. Let's see what else we got. All right. Now, here's the deal. Subpoena for phone records. Okay. Here's how much it would cost for the actual court or legal fees related to this, right? So a court filing fee could average somewhere between $20 to $400, depending on where in the country you are. Process server fees are $45 to $100 to deliver the subpoena. You got carrier administrative fees, record retrieval, like somebody's got to be there to click a button. to get the documents and then send them over to you. That's like 25 to 150, potentially higher for extensive. If you needed it right away, it would be even higher than that. If you needed like right now sort of gig. Overall total cost for non-technical subpoena-driven requests can range from $100 to $750 or more. So you're looking at realistically nowadays, it probably costs, I don't know, let's say $2,500 to $3,000, right? And then of that, if you look at basically the legal costs to go ahead and do the subpoena stuff, it's potentially, it could be 500, could be 1,000, stuff like that. All right. Now, with that said, they also have mega dumps. Now, I need to point something out. There's two groups that really get access to this information. And this is going to probably piss you off. But again, I seem to do that with some of my videos. Hey, and just a side note, if you guys could like my videos because you like them, not because, like, if you hate the topic and you're like, I can't believe they do this, that doesn't mean that you dislike the video. That means you like it because you got to learn about it. Doesn't mean you hate me, the messenger, the attorney giving you the information. It means you like the video so that I can continue to give you more information. All right. So if they wanted basically massive total access, it's known as the DAS project or Hemisphere project. If you wanted all of the AT&T data for decades going backwards, where basically they give law enforcement access, stuff like that. Costs are not usually itemized. It's one of those things where it's very expensive. From 2007 to 2011, AT&T collected about $24 million in reimbursements from government agencies. Verizon collected $3 to $5 million annually during the same period. Now, remember, it's usually two groups buying this information. The law enforcement groups, and then the other group, which you guys never really think about usually, are the data sales groups. What are data sales groups? That's a group that basically, harvests and sells information. So when information becomes available, they'll buy it and then sell it as a data broker to somebody else. So let me give you an example of that. LexisNexis, right, goes to the car companies and says, hey, we will buy all of your driving data that you have since your cars are collecting data. And Toyota or Ford, or you pick whatever car company you want, right, says, hey, you know what? We would love to sell it to you for millions. And they're like, cool, we will buy it for millions. Now, what the data broker LexisNexis is not telling you, the American people, is that basically, they've already got a deal worked out with the insurance companies that sell auto insurance, that they're going to sell all of your information to the auto insurance company so that they can snoop on what type of driver you actually are. So that based off of your driving abilities, they can modify, change, whatever, your actual insurance costs. Now, some people get a little pissy when they find out that all of their metadata, what they're doing under the table when it comes to data, is being bought and sold by different data brokers. This kind of pisses people off. Doesn't piss people as much as learning that the government does massive data sweeps for information. And sometimes, a lot is thrown in, even though a warrant may be this, sometimes they get this, So you have to understand something. The United States government also has another level here. The other level is like your classic NSA stuff, okay? And so what you have to understand is that if we go and look at, for example, your classic NSA, FBI, CIA types, right? What you get is basically this.
And within about 30 minutes, we would probably have all of your passwords that you use for all of your devices in your personal home. That's my fun. When any business person travels to a hostile country, they're almost always surveilled. Their hotel rooms can be rifled through. There's people called bumbling surveillance or watchers who will usually follow you. I'm not sure what your travel looks like, but I can almost assure you that if you traveled to Russia, if you traveled to China, if you traveled to Cuba, you had a watcher, you had a surveillance team.
Really?
That was watching you.
Me?
Yeah.
Why?
because you're wealthy, you're successful, you're an influencer, you're of significance. At the very least, they want to make sure that some petty criminal doesn't hurt you in their country, because that could be a big deal.
Thank you.
But
Please continue to surveil me.
But at worst, they could also be scraping your cell phone to pull all of your contacts off the cell phone, so that they could then reach out to any of the contacts that you have on your cell phone. They could scan and duplicate your hard drive as you go through secondary or go through immigration in a form.
Okay, so the idea here, it's called national security, which was a pretty open hunting season license when it comes to just gathering stuff about you in different situations. So, like, for example, if you get cranky with an SSA person, right, and they've got a recording of you screaming at them, that might give them suggestion to potentially look into you a little bit more. If you were to actually threaten one, right? And this happens to, and I know this all sounds like weird stuff to you guys because you don't experience it, but like, I've had a lot of clients, too many clients, because I guess it's not too many because of the I work with mentally unwell individuals often. I've had too many claimants go ahead and say the wrong thing to a judge, or say the wrong thing to a local field office personnel, or the guard at the hearing office, whatever. And all of a sudden, what happens is now they're on a list. And if they say something that is truly threatening, then pretty much I can't win the benefits at that point. They have to file a new claim, go through the whole process, and then seek benefits on the second round, because they just won't approve them. It's just like an unwritten rule where I can't get them through. There's also certain crimes. If certain individuals are applying for benefits and they commit a crime, or they currently have benefits and then they commit a crime, you guessed it, if their benefits get shut off, it can be really tough to get them turned back on. But again, it's this idea of national security that gives the government the ability to treat Americans like potential harms. And as a result of that, they can kind of grab your info and stuff to make sure that you are not going to do something a little bit saucy, a little bit spicy.
Country.
They can scan my hard drive as I go through immigration.
Absolutely. We can do that here in the United States too.
What? So if I land in the United States, how would they do that?
There's different authorities that exist for different agencies. So here inside the United States, one of the authorities that we give to our Border Patrol is the authority to essentially scrape data off of all of your electronic devices. So if you're deemed a target of interest, and if you're moved into what's known as a secondary screening, they will separate you from your bags. They'll actually open your bags. They might even tell you to unlock your cell phone or unlock your laptop. And then from there, with technology that's proprietary and technology that's also commercially available, they can scrape and scan your hard drive. There's a good chance that it was cloned.
Okay, so here's the thing. A lot of you guys feel like you're protected because it's your cell phone. No electronic device that you own that's modern made, past couple of years, is really owned by you. Yeah, you keep it in your pocket. Yeah, you try not to break the screen on it. Yeah, you search websites on it that you don't want people to know about it, right? It's human nature. Nobody's judging you, okay? But the bottom line is they have ways to get access to this information, okay? Now, the Social Security Administration has a very narrow, limited field where they want to make sure there's not abuse, fraud, waste of the Social Security benefits. So that's kind of their narrow view. But remember, the Social Security Administration will also commonly work in tandem with other inspector generals, other Office of Inspector General, OIGs, and also the Justice Department, okay? And they'll work with local law enforcement, yada, yada. So there's a swirl of agencies constantly and always working together to capture, to catch, to basically investigate people. And one thing you have to keep in mind is that while you think you own this, the only thing really keeping somebody from getting the information off of your phone is the password.
Available. They can scrape and scan your hard drive. There's a good chance that it was cloned.
But I didn't give them my password.
Sometimes they don't need your password.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I have somebody I could call right now, and within about 30 minutes, we would probably have all of your passwords that you use for all of your devices in your personal home.
Okay, so you have to understand the system is not built to go ahead and restrict you from using the device in a way that you would want to, because remember, they want you to do stuff. They want to collect the information of what you would use. This helps them understand psychologically as a profile what type of person you are, what things you look at online, what things you go to when you're seeking stress relief. Now, I'm not saying the US government is allowed, I'm not saying this to lie, except when interacting with SSA, OIG, CDI units, they often do. So here's the thing. A lot of people don't understand what a ruse is. And I want you to understand this because this is a way that they often will get access to your devices and also your body. What do I mean by your body? It means that when they're investigating you, sometimes they will tell you a BS story. And as long as they don't give you any documents that are in furtherance of it, that have a lie on them, then they're allowed to verbally, orally lie to you about a situation to gain access to the stuff you have or your person. What do I mean by gaining access to your person?
Hi, good morning. I'm so sorry. I'm super embarrassed.
Yeah.
Hi, puppy.
Let me get.
This man is 74-year-old John Arthur Getru, an elderly homeowner in Hayward, California. What he doesn't know is that he's speaking with an undercover officer closing in on a decades-old secret, and things are about to take an unexpected turn.
I was turning around in your driveway and I accidentally hit your car.
Which one?
The one parked in the driveway. Do you want to maybe take a look to see if we should exchange insurance information?
Yeah, take a peek.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. So embarrassing.
Sure, something. Yeah, go ahead. Hands behind your back. Face the car. Go ahead, face the car. All right, watch this. We'll talk to you in a minute. Anybody else in the house? No, my wife's at work.
Deputies give John a routine pat-down before he's led to the front seat of a police vehicle.
Take a seat.
You want to rest on that seat?
Okay, so as you can see, that is how they get access to your body, because they play a game called a ruse where they are legally allowed to, sometimes based upon what their bosses want them to do, required to lie to you. So if a person ever walks up to you and you feel you might be being investigated related to Social Security benefits, maybe fraud, maybe whatever, and somebody says, hey, I think that there's a little tiny cat out there that needs assistance, and it turns out that you have cat stuff or dog stuff all over your Facebook page, you should take a moment and think, is this a ruse? So they used a little tiny petite female to say, oh my goodness, I banged your car, I'm so sorry. He comes out, he checks on it, and they immediately arrest him. That is called a ruse. Yay, happy excitement. All right, so with that said, now that you kind of understand the background of that, and now that you kind of understand essentially, what's going on, the government every year spends tens of millions of dollars on collecting your information, specifically for recording you through listening and also wiretapping you. Now, the SSA does not, basically have a specific budget on what they spend on listening. But obviously it takes gear, it takes phone systems. They just had to swap out their phone system. There's a whole article on that about Verizon and blah, 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 blah. So at the same time, what you kind of have to understand is that, with the listening, that's usually for we want to do better as a company. We want to make sure our employees are doing well with you, but they also capture the information so that down the line, when you say, you're on the phone, they're like, hey, we're going to record you for courteousness and blah, blah, blah. And then you end up screaming at them. Now they've got information that they can use with this. So the bottom line with this situation is that when people come to me and say, this is horrendous, how could they? Where's the constitutional protection? I would merely point you specifically to the Bush War related to 9/11 and what rules were changed, because that's going to be a very big focal point on when national security began to erode the types of legal protections you had to your privacy under the Constitution. Now, we have gone through a lot of things. I have one final thing I want to go through, which is that when it comes to the government's ability to surveil people, it used to be limited because they wouldn't have the ability to go through all the information they could collect because they mostly had to use key term search utilization. Well, now they don't just have to find key terms. Now they have artificial intelligence to be able to go through, scan your file, figure things out, and do analysis with literal thinking, where it can figure out if something is hiding. Now, what happens when this really gets full flow? What this means is that people committing crimes, they're not going to be able to do it like they used to. People working under the table and surviving, they're not going to be able to do it like they used to. Let me explain why. They are going to be able to access information related to you in the future utilizing artificial intelligence, where they will know with a high probability of certainty how much money you are earning under the table, or if you have some other monetary source coming to you based off of your purchases. Why? Well, you see, right now, they don't have full access to your bank accounts unless you're on SSI benefits for old age retired SSI recipients, which is a Social Security program for those who didn't work enough or haven't worked recently enough, or basically, worked under the table their entire life. In that document called the emergency message released by the policy department of the Social Security Administration, they said they intended to spread it to the SSI, they intended to spread it. And we believe it's going to go to SSI disabled next, and then SSI entrance, and then on and on. Now, you saw one of the big avenues of the Democrats was to go ahead and get access to the bank accounts of Americans. That's why Biden's administration wanted to know every time at least $600 came in or left your account with the bank. Now, as you know, they've already authorized the SSA to have full access to payroll details for recipients that are limited by what's called substantial gainful activity. That means people on Title II SSDI benefits and Title 16 SSI benefits, they've got a pretty good idea of exactly when you earn legally earned money. But what they're missing is essentially when you earn under the table money, or when you have basically money coming in cash form. Now, as you might know, bank accounts are helpful for under the table income, but they're not perfect. Now, in the future, getting access to your bank accounts, getting access to your credit cards, getting access to your debit cards, getting access to your, we call them rewards cards, stuff like that, getting access to your apps on your phones, getting access to basically, anything that might show an increase in your standing. Now, let me give you something that you don't want to know that's going to piss you off, but you should know it anyways. There is a system inside the government that creates profiles for everybody. Everybody gets a board, everybody gets pictures on it, everybody gets writing, everybody gets analysis on, everybody gets one, okay? It's a profile system that basically allows the government to go ahead and store things related to you. This system numerically does math on where you're at on the spectrum of life, what kind of education you have, how much money do you have in different bank accounts, whether or not you travel overseas, all this stuff. It is able to, with artificial intelligence, go ahead and figure out numerically on a scale whether or not your worth is increasing at too fast of a rate based off of what accessibility options in business or earnings you have to you. And as a result of that, it's getting better at profiling you to figure out what capacity you have to increase your well-being with stuff. Now, this program can give them a very clear picture as to where you are at on essentially the American life standard, where your life is at, where you are in the benchmark of how humans are doing in America. As a result of that, right, when they're able to go ahead and access your phone system, your text system, your email system, your bank system, your credit cards, your debit cards, your this or that, your this or that, whether they can go ahead and access it. And here's the important part. If you learn one thing from this video, this is probably the most important part. When you go, or when they go to access your information, sometimes they can't get the necessary legal documents to access it. But you may have noticed that there's a lot of new restrictions, but yet a lot of new companies that do data brokering. Data brokers work with places like Facebook. They work with places like Microsoft. They work with places like car companies, and they purchase for millions of dollars all of the data that they have that basically you would have thought was your private information, but it's not. They then sell it to the government, and the government uses it to fill in the puzzle pieces for whatever they want to do related to your account. Okay, so now you know. Now you know. I thought people knew more about this. It was an interesting, I had one of those 1 hour consultations where basically, a person pays me $250, and then for an hour, we usually do about hour, 10 hour, 15 minutes, but we go through their question, and they got really upset when I started to explain to them what kind of information they could get access to. And they were horrified. And I explained it to them, and they weren't happy. Now, to be fair,